Thank you. With us now, our panel, Rabbi Chaim Mentz, Fox News contributor Kiron Skinner, and Aaron Cohen, Israeli Special Operations veteran. Aaron, let me come to you first. We heard President Trump there describe this as an attack against what is and has been the world's biggest state sponsor of terror. It seems impossible for, and I'm sure people will try, but it's impossible to argue any case against that. They have been, for decades now, the Iranians, the biggest state sponsor of terror in the world.
That's right, and they should have been designated a terrorist organization 39 years ago. Trump is spot on. He was spot on with his attack on Fordo. He had the intelligence. It was actionable. He didn't wait too long. He made the decision before the threat continued to emerge, took the shot, successful operation. But I can't help but think to believe, Jonathan, with my 25 years in this business, I don't think Fordo was the end, and that's the truth. I think Fordo was the beginning, and I'll tell you why. You can bury the centrifuge when this is over, after this operation was just conducted, but you're not going to bury this regime without taking them down. And that's really where I come out with this. And I think that the real work here is just going to begin. I think it's going to be Israel taking point here. Like your other guest was saying earlier, we're going to continue doing all this work. We're going to continue hunting the leaders. We're going to continue hunting the Quds force. We're going to continue going after the planners. We're going to continue going after the engineers. They will all be hunted, but they'll have to be removed, because at the end of the day, even though you took out the weapon, it's the narcissistic, radical Islamist running that terror organization, which you set this up with, is ultimately the ones who would have pulled the trigger and used that nuclear weapon. And we have to have an honest conversation about what happens if they remain in.
Yeah.
So what's the next day look like? And I think those are the next conversations that we need to start having.
And Rabbi, talking of a regime change in Iran, we're hearing some statements from some of the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia among them, which are treading a careful line, not openly criticizing the U.S., but saying diplomacy is the only way forward. But it strikes me, and you were making this point earlier, what they say publicly might not be what they're thinking privately.
100%, because you got to realize Saudi Arabia has millions of Muslims living in their country, and they are very much in control of their country. But at the same time, they don't know who tomorrow is going to be in Iran. That's number one. Number two, you're right. What kind of regime change is going to be? There's a cancer. You can get out the missiles. You can get out the machine. But if the mindset is still that, because the Arabs love living, I shouldn't say Muslim, but these kind of people love living with time. If I didn't get you today, I'll get you 60 years from now. Such people cannot ever get into power. And that is the biggest threat for history. Thank God we took care of a Hitler. Thank God we took care of a Stalin. Thank God we took care of every single person that raises to power. But it seems like when it came to Iran, presidencies and many administrations were coddling them, saying, if you like us, you're not going to hit us. At the same time, we heard in the streets, death to America. So these types of leaders, it's not about regime change. It's more about thinking change. And that is the most important thing. These kind of people, your life will be better off if you stop thinking how I can murder everybody who doesn't think like me.
Right.
And that's where I think is where we have to start thinking about tomorrow.
Kiron, there's been a lot of debate in the run-up to the second Trump presidency, in the first few months of the second Trump presidential term, about whether this president is and would act as an isolationist. This seems to have put that debate to bed.
I think so, and it did something else. If you think about the 21st century, the Bush administration came in with some grand plans, and then they really got mugged by history with 9/11. And they had to pivot to the global war on terror. Much that was happening in the rest of the world, although they tried to address it, they had to just focus on defeating terrorists. And they fought wars in the Middle East, perhaps the wrong ones, but they did. Donald Trump is the first U.S. president in the 21st century to develop a grand strategy that's not just about the global war on terror and not just about the Middle East. What does that mean? There are many in the new MAGA movement, the America First movement, the bipartisan elites who want to define for him what that grand strategy should be. And this moment is one in which Donald Trump has taken the reins and has defined it for himself. That he's not an isolationist, he's not an interventionist, he's a peace strategist. And I think that's what we saw in the last 24 or 48 hours.
Yeah, it's interesting how many presidencies seem to be controlled or allow themselves to be controlled by foreign policy events. It seems to be a president, as you say, determined to take control of those events.
It is, and I think some are going to be quite upset with him that they did not prevail in their perspective. I know Mark Levin was really harshly criticized by the restrainers and the isolationists. Donald Trump is his own man. I don't understand why it's so difficult for many of his advisors and many of those in the larger and emerging conservative movement think he needs guidance from them. He's reading the globe fairly well, I would say.
Is this the president the world needed at the time it needed it, Aaron?
Well, if you were to add up the amount of Americans killed, the amount of Israelis getting attacked daily, October 7th, the 1,200 kidnapped, the 1,200 murdered, the up to 250, 60 kidnapped and taken into the tunnels, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah for 20 years, while you were living in Israel and those missiles were coming over in the north, while Israel was in the southern border there at our southern Lebanon. Listen, this is the president who has essentially helped their forward operating ally, Israel, take down Hezbollah, and now the nuclear bully of the last 40 years. This is the president the world needed. There's no lollygagging with this guy. And like you said, he's his own man. He doesn't need advisors. He understands the global threat here, takes the shot when he needs to. He's just got certainty and moral clarity. And I think it's interesting to see him get everybody else on the run and start getting everybody in line, but for the good of the world. And you know what? There's going to be this opposition and whatnot, but we don't have the luxury to deal with this nonsense with the other side right now. Right. I'm into it, and I like where it's going, and I'm interested to see where it's going to continue to go.
Interesting description of Israel as a forward operating ally. I'm going to get the rabbi's views on that a little bit later in the show. I've got to run now, Rabbi. Kiron, Aaron, thank you so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.